At the beginning of 2025, I started a road trip that would take me from my home country of Portugal all the way up north to Scotland and then back again. On the surface, the goal was simple: to solidify myself as a photographer, to see the world, to understand what truly moves me, and to create something honest enough to share. But beneath all that, there was another reason, one that was harder to explain and impossible to ignore. I didn't leave to escape my life. I left because something inside me was calling, and I had learned, slowly and painfully, that ignoring that call is its own kind of death. Some journeys happen on maps, marked by borders and distances. Others happen beneath the skin, quietly reshaping the way you see yourself. A kind of shedding in its own way, leaving back whatever doesn't fit me anymore. But also coming to terms with who I really am and accepting that. For a long time, I carried what I had been given. Names, expectations, inherited ideas of who I should be and how a life should unfold. I carried them carefully and faithfully, holding them close. Not because they inspired me, but because they reminded me of what I didn't want. I learned how to accept my fate, how to bear weight, how to keep going without asking too many questions. I learned how to bow my head and say yes. Those were skills I had to acquire, and for a while, they kept me moving. But I soon realized that strength like that is a quiet misery. It teaches you how to endure, how to survive, but never how to live. And so one day I chose uncertainty, not because I felt brave or fearless, but because staying felt more dangerous than leaving. Safety was more suffocating than trying to grasp for air. Somewhere between one horizon and the next, something uncomfortable became clear to me. The hardest battle wasn't out there, trying and failing and trying again. It was inside me. Fear followed everywhere. Doubt sat beside me like an old friend. Old voices resurfaced when the nights grew long and quiet. I began to understand that you don't outrun yourself by moving faster. Eventually, you'll have to accept and meet yourself by standing still. There is an enemy that wears your face, one that knows exactly what to say to keep you small. It whispers familiar advice. Stay safe. Don't risk it. Facing that enemy requires a different kind of courage. It forced me to ask questions with uncomfortable answers. Which values were actually mine, and which ones had I inherited out of fear? How much of my life had been shaped by habit, and how much by deliberate choice? At some point in every internal journey, the old meanings collapse. The ground you thought was solid dissolves beneath your feet, like snow. It feels like loss. It feels like chaos. It feels like floating alone in open water with no shoreline in sight. But that collapse isn't destruction, it's clearing. A clearing of noise. You cannot create while clinging, and you cannot move forward while dragging the weight of ideas that were never yours. So I learned to let things burn in peace. I questioned what I had been taught about success, about goodness, about what a meaningful life is supposed to look like. I began to see what morality without life in it is often just obedience dressed as virtue. And obedience has never made anyone whole. There is a loneliness that comes with thinking for yourself. A distance opens between you and the crowd, not because you feel above it, but because you are finally trying to speak from a vulnerable place. You wear that vulnerability like armor. A paradox, in a way, but it's only when you drop all the masks that you can truly protect yourself from life that was chosen for you. Slowly, you learn to trust your own eyes. This is where the journey becomes real, when no one is clapping, when no one is watching, when the path offers no guarantee of arrival, only responsibility. For me, not knowing the outcome is better than a safe one, when I know there is a possibility for something far better and greater. Because no one else can live your life for you. No belief system, no leader, no God can do that work in your place. Meaning isn't something you stumble upon by accident. It's something you forge again and again through choice and consequence. There were days on this path when I felt like I was tearing myself apart. Days when everything I believed fell silent, when I wondered whether I had made a mistake at all. Nights when I felt that no matter how much effort I put in, with each step, I wasn't really achieving anything. This path I chose took its toll. From the outside, people often see only the bright side, the movement, the freedom, the images. How lucky I am to be able to travel the world and enjoy its beauty. What they don't see are the sacrifices, the long and dark nights, the slow, introspective steps taken to reach a brighter morning. The comfort you have to give up in order to live on the road. The mornings you wake up at 4 a.m. with only 3 hours of sleep. But it's in those moments, somewhere between exhaustion and clarity, that the internal voyage continues. And look, I'm not complaining. I would do it all over again. But like everything in life, you sacrifice some things for those that resonate with you more. Change is rarely gentle, and it is almost never well-mannered. It doesn't have a user's manual with clear instructions. But there came a time when I knew that all this extra weight I was carrying had to go. For years I assumed that weight was necessary, that it was proof of seriousness, of commitment, maybe even of virtue. Letting go of it felt unthinkable, as if it would mean I was failing at life. But distance has a way of loosening assumptions. Somewhere along the road, I began to sense that what I was carrying did not belong to me at all. It was repetition, habit, a form I had grown into without ever questioning whether it still fit. And by going away from home, those things started to be left behind naturally. The moment of realizing this was not dramatic. Nothing broke apart. There was no clear decision, no act of defiance. The weight simply lost its authority. What I had once held onto out of duty started to feel optional. And in that small shift, I finally felt there was space. Not freedom, just room. To move, to breathe, to be something without having to try and explain why. without judgment. What followed wasn't rebellion. I'm getting a bit too old for that. It wasn't an attempt to turn away from the world as we know it either. It felt more like a quiet return to something that had been dormant for a long time. A type of connection that was switched off out of necessity, and now switched on out of necessity. Somewhere along the way, I stopped measuring the days by progress. I began to understand that this road wasn't meant to give me answers. It wasn't some sort of breakthrough moment in life. It was just a normal progression of it, after putting the effort to listen to my own voice, and getting away from the noise. There are still moments when I doubt myself, moments when the old voices return and ask what this is all for. I don't silence them anymore. I let them speak, and I keep walking. Because I've learned that certainty isn't what carries you forward. I was never someone who lived with absolute certainty. I've always felt my way forward rather than following a clear plan. And while that has made things harder at times, it has also kept me honest, attentive, and open to becoming something I couldn't have planned in advance. For a long time, I thought that was weakness. Now I'm starting to see it as the way I stay connected to what feels true. Chaos developing adaptation. What this journey has given me isn't confidence or clarity, but a deeper honesty with myself, a willingness to stay uncomfortable and still keep going, to feel the weight of my choices and still claim them as mine, to accept that becoming is slow, uneven, and often unimpressive from the outside. This road trip has now come to an end, but the road didn't. I don't know what comes next yet, but I feel more ready to face it.